number is, the more blurring you're going to get. So you want to be careful. You don't want too much blurring, right? It should be gentle. It should look realistic. The higher the number, the less of the blurring you're going to see. It's going to it's essentially pushing the radius out of the focal blur. I think 20 was pretty good. Between 20 and 30. And now we'll let that render. So because I've added more complexity to my environment, it's going to take a bit longer to render. So you can see here, it's the render passes are slower. It's starting to pick up, but initially it started off slower. Oops. I believe without the focal blur, it took like 3 minutes or less. I'm sure this will go up to 6, but it's actually going pretty quickly. But again, you can see the quality of the bump map is much better when it's been rendered out versus in your rendered view. I mean, this is getting close to professional, I would say. I mean, obviously there are organizations and companies that this is what they do. They render stuff and they're really good at it and they get paid a lot of money to do it. So being able to use visualization tools, even ones that are more advanced than Rhino, or just the basic Rhino rendering, is a very useful skill, I would say. If you get really good at it, I mean, people will hire you for that, and you could potentially make your own business rendering products or objects for other people. I mean, again, there are companies whose they're all they do is visualize architectural projects, and a lot of times they will hire people who've been educated in architecture because, again, we are always visualizing our work, and usually people will develop really masterful skills in modeling, and those kinds of companies want people like that. So I'm at 2 minutes, and it's not too bad. I would say maybe I would want to just save this. So this one is at 3 minutes. That means the other one, probably I could have stopped rendering that one a lot sooner. But so, what really is going, what you're doing here is you're setting up a workflow. So I am checking to see how long it will take for this rendering at this view, how many samples it will take. So right now I'm at 400. It's been 3 minutes. So that way when I make more views, I know how long it's going to take. I know exactly how long it should take, and I can be very precise with my workflow. And this gets really important if when you start, let's say, doing more complex rendering like animation. So, for instance, your stop motion video, that was a type of animation. I mean, it was a manual one, right? You were rigging your models so that they would fold up and down. But that is a type of animation that you were doing because you were capturing them in sequence. And there are specific rendering engines that do this, where you can set up cameras. You give it parameters, and it will render a scene for you. And we will talk about that too, because Rhino has its own version of that. It's much more simplified, but it's useful, I think. Okay, so this is, I mean, look, you can really see the bump map on the stone, what is that word? Stone what? Sunnies. Sunny. I mean, that's pretty detailed. Okay, okay, stopped at 600, and now I can save this out. Again, I'm not changing any of these because I don't want it to render again. But you could, so like I said, if you're setting up multiple views, all you have to do is set your camera, and you could just, in the viewport capture to file, set the settings that you want and let it render out. So it'll render it, and then it'll save it for you. That can get, a little iffy sometimes, but it always usually works. And the image was saved. I can also pause, right? So here is a pause and play. So when it's paused, that means it's not going to render anymore. So your computer will slow down. And there's my rendering. These will open. Not bad. Nice detail. Okay. So for next week, you're going to produce new renderings. They're going to update your texture maps based off of my comments from today. Your new renderings will use the ray trace option. You're going to modify your environment so it's more dynamic. You're going to essentially use all the tools that I've showed you today. Make sure your lighting is better. Make sure you have sun. You've modified the light and shadows depending on your view. Okay, so you will produce essentially four views for each model. It will be 2 ISO views, 2 detail views again. I get 2 isometric views of the overall, and 2 detail views. 2 detail views. I want to make sure that makes clear to everyone that they need to be 2 detail views, because I want to see what you need to see, and what I want to see is the quality of your texture map and the bump map. And that you will upload under here for each one. And again, follow the formatting instructions. You can choose your 2 best views. It could be 2 other ones. Again, you want to find the best views of your model. The best views. I want to see the best. Nothing but the best. The detail view should be in perspective so that you can use the focal blur. You cannot use the focal blur in parallel view. Are there any questions? Today went a bit more quickly. Let's see if I'm forgetting anything. Nope, that was everything. So I really want you to spend time working out your materials, right? I want you to make it look as realistic as possible. I know there is a limitation because these are abstract models, but it's an aim, right? So, for instance, when I was picking out materials, these are materials that you've made, right? This isn't a material you made. You found that material, but it's the legibility isn't very good. The scale of the material is in part, the issue with the scale is in part due to the resolution of the image. So you want high resolution images so that you get clarity in your rendering.